Hey everyone who stumbled upon this video. Here I want to talk about this tabletop RPG I've been unsuccessfully trying to track down for a few years now. I had this game book in my childhood, but now it's lost. If only I remembered the title. I'm making this video primarily for myself to organize my thoughts, but if you happen to know the game described in it, please let me know. If not, I hope you find it interesting anyway. The game is set in some city in our world after a certain global incident, still not sure what exactly. As a result of this incident, our world now is doomed. It will gradually deteriorate, and soon enough everything will be destroyed, and everyone would die. You start as an ordinary resident of this city. Initially, you don't notice any signs of decay, but as you stroll through the streets, you begin to see that something is definitely off. At first, you realize the pigeons disappeared from the streets. Then, you start noticing other oddities. Road signs piled up in an alley. People behaving strangely. Two friends were talking one moment, and the next, they stopped noticing each other. But the world has not just become strange, it has become hostile and dangerous. It's rather difficult to describe how this is manifested. The world seems to have become possessed by something, and everything in it seems to be trying to harm you in some way, even kill you. And the more you think you're in control, the more the world will try to screw you. You're at max HP? Have a debuff. Or another possible event. You can't find an item that was recently in your inventory, and it's unclear what happened. Again, someone tries to mess with you. And my favorite event of that kind, when you decide to go to another location in the city, the game will deplete your movement points, but may refuse to let you there, saying something like, "You wandered around the city all day, but somehow didn't manage to arrive to the desired location." But you won't just aimlessly wander throughout the adventure. You'll eventually have a specific, quite odd mission. You stumble upon a rumor that you can return to the old, normal existence and live as you used to by finding the true Earth. It sounds ridiculous, and you probably realize that, but you have no other options. You cling to this last hope and set out to find the true Earth. The problem, however, is that no one can say for sure what this search entails, what is meant by the true Earth, and where it can be found. Even one of the most knowledgeable characters in the game claims that the Earth could be anywhere and even where you least expect it. As a result, you go from location to location, sometimes accompanied by NPCs, looking for something even remotely resembling the true Earth. Look, I'm not here to tell you what's really going on in the game, lore-wise and gameplay-wise. I just don't know. It didn't interest me as a kid. I would just look at the artwork, read descriptions of random encounters, and notice some odd details. I forgot to mention an important thing. I've never actually played this game. Back then, I didn't even know what TTRPG was. I had no idea how to use this book. Also, I never was in a condition to fully understand everything. The book was in English, and my English wasn't that great. And instead of a physical gamebook, I only had a PDF file with scanned pages. I'm pretty sure that not all pages were even in that file, maybe not even the title page. So, naturally, the narrative for me was disjointed. The gameplay symbols remained mostly unexplained. Still, I do remember some gameplay rules. There's a knock-knock mechanic. The book said that if you hear knocking inside your skull, it means death is near. No idea how this is supposed to work in the game. I also remember some RPG elements of the game. The PC attributes are your standard attributes like health, strength, willpower, etc. But there is something else. Each standard attribute has a corresponding counterpart, a sort of anti-attribute with a strange name. The core gameplay revolves around collecting tokens of these attributes and anti-attributes. Positive events give you attribute tokens, essentially leveling you up, while negative events give you anti-attribute tokens. As for NPCs, I remember Rabbit, Salvador, the worshippers of the worm witness, a creature called something like Dutch Hell. To your own surprise, the very first NPC is located right in your apartment. It's some creature that you find, as the book puts it, in the coldest and darkest corner of the apartment. But at that moment, it's still in a folded, inactive state, and you can't interact with it yet. The most significant part of the plot revolves around Salvador. You meet this character at the moment when you are in mortal danger, and it's Salvador who saves you from it. This is one of the few characters in the game who isn't just passively waiting for something or aimlessly wandering around the city, but is genuinely trying to grasp the essence of the events unfolding and attempts to do something to make a change. He even shares his findings with you regarding the nature of the ongoing apocalypse, which were so convoluted that I didn't remember anything. He also possesses the skills to survive in this crumbling world, and most importantly, he claims to know where to find the Earth. He tells you about some legendary land, barely touched by humans and incredibly harsh. Here, a choice arises. You have the option to either go with Salvador to the unknown land or wait for him in the city. Salvador insists on the second option, as it would keep you safer. I also remember the story Salvador told about how he lost his partner. That guy apparently went insane, claiming to have found the Earth inside his brain. He jumped into a chasm, saying he no longer needed his physical body. If you choose to heed your new acquaintance's advice and wait for him in the city, Salvador will settle you on the veranda of an abandoned house. He says this place may seem sketchy at first, but it's actually the most secure spot in the city. As Salvador departs, it doesn't take more than a few days before doubt begins to haunt you. When is he supposed to return anyway? In 2 days? Or 2 years? You spend your days staring out the window, watching people and cars as they move in the distance. With each passing day, doubts grow. Did he forget he was supposed to come back here? What if he died? The further description of this waiting scenario starts to resemble a dream. It feels like you've been waiting for an eternity, and you've become a completely different person. Perhaps not even person anymore. That's all I know about this plotline. Can Salvador return? I don't know. But it appears that the best choice is to join Salvador on the expedition. To venture into the unknown land alongside Salvador, you need to prove your readiness for survival in harsh conditions. You can embark if certain PC attributes, probably strength, dexterity, endurance, or others, are above a certain threshold. The book describes the unknown land as a place of many conflicting legends. Some say that this place holds the secret to immortality. Others say only a curse can be found here. I don't know how, but in the end, you and Salvador find yourselves in this place. You instantly feel lost amidst these unfamiliar surroundings. But Salvador knows what he's doing. As you sit down on a fallen tree, he wanders off and returns with a map of the landscape. When you ask him where he got it, he casually responds that he reached out to some animal friends for help. Can't tell if it's a joke. Salvador takes the lead, checking the map, and you come along behind. This location is not much easier than the city, but if the city was actively hunting you, this place couldn't care less. On the one hand, this is good news, but on the other hand, Nothing here is designed for humans and human traversing. So, you constantly encounter puzzles in the form of challenging obstacles, impassable terrain, cliffs, and so on. Solving them on your own is tough, but the saving grace is that Salvador in this location is your NPC companion. If you're struggling with a puzzle, just pass the initiative to Salvador, that is, the game master, who will immediately suggest a smart, resourceful, and brave solution you probably wouldn't have thought of yourself. It seems like everything's going great. Salvador solves all the puzzles for you, and soon you'll find the Earth. But with each obstacle overcome, Salvador's energy for some reason starts to fade. He becomes disheartened and loses his initiative. His cognitive abilities start to deteriorate. He experiences difficulties in understanding the map and stops offering clever solutions to puzzles. But you're unlikely to be able to offer such solutions either. You simply don't understand this place, so the best you can suggest is to aimlessly wait or to go around the obstacle for dozens of kilometers. Salvador withers away, unable to even walk, so you have to carry his body. Soon, you catch yourself imagining that Salvador is still walking alongside you. But then you remember that you've actually been walking alone for a while, carrying only the remains of your former companion. You can try to continue searching for the Earth on your own, but soon you realize you're lost in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by unforgiving nature. You probably won't understand the map. You can take a look at it in the book, but I can tell you, it's drawn with a completely incomprehensible and physically impossible logic. But even if you manage to find the right path, overcoming obstacles will be nearly impossible without external help. Perhaps there are secret skills you can use if you're lucky enough to acquire them in advance. In any case, navigating this location is a puzzle in itself. Even returning to the city is a puzzle given your disorientation. Interestingly, when you don't make progress and can't find your way back, the game master may offer you the option to cry. I didn't notice that this action had any effects, but it seems like the unknown land is once again showing its indifference. Among the events in this location, I remember that you can find a tiny mitten lying in the mud. Not a very thrilling finding, I know, but I still remembered that. People can be found here as well. For instance, if you follow a trail, you'll encounter a person offering literal eternal happiness. Oddly enough, you don't have a choice here. You instantly turn down the offer, explaining that you have an important and urgent mission to find the true Earth. Being alone won't get you far in this location. Your goal is to visit as many significant places as possible, while Salvador is still more or less in his right mind. For example, one random event occurs when you fall asleep in the grass and then suddenly wake up in the middle of the night to see something like a giant sword in the sky, its hilt sticking out from behind the horizon. If Salvador has already died by this point, you'll be frightened by this vision and receive a negative token. However, if Salvador is still alive, you won't get a negative token because Salvador will calmly explain to you that such a phenomenon sometimes occurs in this area. He'll describe the complex physical nature of this phenomenon, involving factors such as air temperature, reflection, and so on. Also, if Salvador is still alive, he'll lead you to one of the few human settlements in this location. You'll have a pretty good time here. You'll be particularly amused by a local girl who can levitate just a tiny bit, a few centimeters above the ground. Another NPC, Rabbit, surprised me the most. This character is essentially a man with the head of a white rabbit, and everyone, I mean you first of all, seems to take it as something natural. Maybe, given what is happening, it doesn't strike you as that strange. His storyline, like the character himself, is quite enigmatic. Rabbit doesn't really care about anything other than being friends with you. For example, if you run into him once again in the city during a random event, he'll suggest going to the movies, even though it seems like you won't gain any benefits from it. You'll just waste time that could have been spent searching for the Earth. Rabbit doesn't seem to be bothered at all by the impending apocalypse. This character always shows up in the weirdest situations, and there are multiple endings tied to him. Rabbit likes to comment on the items you find. In this game, there are several useless items, and when you find one of these trinkets, he'll declare that useless things are always the best things. I don't remember the context, but when you see blackberries, Rabbit says something like, "I remember when these berries used to be poisonous." You have the option to kill Rabbit. It's unclear why you would want to do that, since he's the most innocent soul in the game. After committing this awful act, you collapse unconscious and start having a feverish dream about the universe rebelling because of Rabbit's death. And nothing good remains in it. Stars go dark, a giant shadow covers the world, and you're thrown into space. But it's not the usual space. It's rotting and decaying as if it was made of flesh. You observe these cosmological perversions for a long time, but eventually you're brought to an unfamiliar celestial body, which the book calls Earth. Only it's not Earth. It's not even a planet, but rather an asteroid. In any case, on this asteroid, you're met by the most grotesque creature in the game, which the book calls the Defender of Earth. The book has a whole spread with an image of this creature, but the second page of the spread depicting the lower part of the creature was missing in my file, so it was hard for me to visualize it in its entirety. The book mentions that this creature can breathe in a vacuum and feeds on stones. It speaks to you with the sounds of metallic grinding, but you can still understand it. It says it will defend Earth from intruders, which means you. And here begins an actual boss battle, though not really, you can't win it. After being defeated, you return to reality. I should also add that the book never explicitly states that all of this is a dream. This is just my assumption. There's another strange place where Rabbit plays a significant role, but it's a secret one. This place seems to have no connection to the main plot. It's beyond reality, and definitely beyond my understanding. In a specific spot in the city, on the wall of a house, you see the light of the setting sun taking the shape of some word. Can't remember what word exactly, but it resembled a person's name. And this word triggers a process in you, evoking memories of a certain sacred place in the world. According to the book, this place existed thousands of years ago. You mentally transport yourself there, but the locals greet you as if you physically arrived. They claim they've been waiting for your return for a long time. Several names of these residents are mentioned. Strangely, they are named after internal organs like liver, pancreas, and so on. And in this place, you find Rabbit, with whom you will spend most of your time here. In this location, you don't need to search for the Earth or fight for survival, but you can do the following. You can go with Rabbit into the woods at night, where an unusually strong wind blows. Not that you deliberately go there at night, it just happens to be night when you arrive. You can fly on a wingsuit over some stone columns. You can climb up bushes that reach into the sky. It's dangerous, but there are fruits up there that you're allowed to take as many as you can carry. On the way, you may come across a pile of gold nuggets that are of no interest to any of the local residents. The gold is cold to the touch. If all of this doesn't seem strange enough to you, Know that this storyline ends with you spending the rest of your life in this place, dying, and then starting to recount everything that happens to you after death. You claim that not much changes compared to your regular life. Despite these words, you go on to describe something rather unusual. You slowly float towards the sun, which isn't referred to as the sun here. It emits sounds and shimmers in bright colors. You claim to have floated for eternity. However, that's not the end of the game. After that, you return to the doomed city. Yes, that's right. First, an endless flight, then coming back. So, what was all that? I have my own interpretation of what's happening in this location, but that's not the focus of this video, so let's move on. Believe it or not, but this game has another bit that's even harder to tie to the main events. It's so unrelated to anything that even the PC, whom you played as before, doesn't appear in it. There was something about knights in it. I don't know why it's there by mistake or it's some kind of joke. Since this episode isn't connected to the rest, I will skip it. Let's talk about endings. The book doesn't have a dedicated endings section that would neatly present game completion options. Instead, fragments are scattered throughout the book that somewhat resemble endings, but there's no clear indication. In one of these endings, you find a small school globe in a ditch and literally start sinking into it. You shrink in size and the globe transforms into Earth. However, for some reason, there's no one on this Earth. Another ending section is called The Longest Summer. Somehow, you and Rabbit are left alone in complete darkness in the world. When you ask Rabbit where the Earth is, he replies that it doesn't exist yet, and you need to wait. Game over here is quite special. PC's death is not the end of the adventure. After you die, you draw special tokens that you've accumulated throughout the adventure, and these tokens determine your afterlife fate. So, as a result of this action, a creature called something like Dutch Hell may approach you. According to the legend, if this creature comes to you on your deathbed and you take its hand, you will be saved. In game logic, this means that death is cancelled and you can continue the game with minimal HP. There's a picture of this character in the book, dressed in white, his head shaped like an acoustic horn or a megaphone. The text also mentions that tiny inscriptions are engraved on the inside of this creature's horn head, and his voice is a blend of high and low tones, and the closer you are, the more you hear the low tones, while the farther away you are, the more you hear the high ones. If he doesn't come to you after death, you're done. The game is over. But there's a small chance of a third outcome when someone very similar to Dutch Hell comes to you. Next to the picture of Dutch Hell, there was a picture of this second creature. They looked almost the same, maybe with a slight difference, but I can't quite put my finger on it. At the same time, the game master in their remark should state that these two have nothing in common. They have different positions in the system of living beings, and even different ontological statuses, maybe? In short, this second creature or entity masquerades as Dutch Hell to lure you into its master's location. So, if you can't accurately identify your guest and end up taking the mimic's hand, he will send you to a new location, which I'll describe further. The mimic transports you to some isolated area, and you find yourself in a certain room. In the center stands, as I understood, the same creature you saw curled up in your apartment at the beginning of the adventure. In the picture, this creature looked like an ugly little man, a hairy child, or some kind of animal. He had a misshapen head, and because of his baggy clothes, it was hard to tell how many limbs he had, if any. The creature is surrounded by figures in robes who worship him. On the page dedicated to this location, there were images depicting some grotesque, slimy clumps with open human eyes. At the time, I didn't know what they were, but now it seems to me like these are people, and they're still alive. This is how they mutilate people here, transform them into bundles of skin and meat. In the location, there are torture chambers where they deform people. The book also mentions that there's so much blood in the torture chambers that it seeps through the walls into the central room. I don't know how that's supposed to work. The inhabitants of the location sing cruel songs about the torture they want to inflict on all people, and the torture is meant to be carried out for the sole reason to shock those who doubt that such a thing is possible. But I never understood who exactly sings these songs, the cultists or the creature himself. It seemed to me that the cultists sing songs about blood, while the creature, on the contrary, preaches words of love. Quite a strange disconnection. In this location, you can talk to the creature, asking him various questions about the world. The game master answers them. After answering your questions, the creature essentially evaluates your progress throughout the adventure. Progress is assessed based on the number of key items you've found. If you've collected few key items, you'll most likely become one of the victims of the cultists' operations. If your progress was significant, you'll occupy a more enviable position within the hierarchy of the residents of this location, up to becoming a cultist or even a new creature. Yes, I know there are too many unnecessary details in this video, but you see, I'm trying to recall as many things as possible about this game. If I don't record them now, I may never remember them again. Well, this is the perfect place to stop for now, but I still have much more to share about this game. When there's time, I'll make a final, additional video